Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Daytona International Speedway as it plays host to the season opener for the 2022 season for the Midwest Sim Racing Association. Here tonight, we're preparing for the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250 100 laps around this historic 2.5 mile super speedway. I'm Seth Colbean, joined by Kyle Lawrence, and Kyle, these guys, clean slate here to a brand new season, the mecca of motorsports where we kick things off. It's going to be a good one here tonight as we've got over 30 trucks in the field to kick off the season opener.
Here we are once again, Daytona for the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. This should be a lot of fun, Seth. 100 laps around Daytona International Speedway. There's no better way to start off a season is here at Daytona. And some good trucks out there tonight, Seth.
Absolutely. Going to be very interesting to see how the strategy plays out in the early, middle, and latter portions of this race. We do know that we will have a guaranteed caution in this race. A stage yellow will come out at the completion of lap 40, so theoretically a 40-60 run, if you will, for these drivers to strategize for. And I believe they've just completed up qualifying, which is going to find Boyd Hogan on the pole position alongside of Andrew Navarro. Now, we do have a defending champion of the series coming into this season. As we show you the starting lineup, we're going to talk to that driver right now. Let's see if we can dial up the driver of the 22 truck here tonight, Alan Dobbs. Hey, Alan, it's the guys up here in the FRN studios. You got us?
Yeah, man.
All right, so Daytona, bit of a wild card race, as we know, to start out the season, but you come in as the defending champion, so what's the strategy here tonight, especially early on?
The only strategy you can really have is to be there at the end, so that's what we're going to try to do, try to stay out of the wrecks, stay out of the mess. If you're alive on the last lap, on the lead lap, you got a chance to win it, so that's what we're going to try to do.
Obviously, at super speedways, you want to have friends, you want to have allies. Coming in as the defending champion, do you think that that's been able to gain you more drivers that are going to be willing to work with you to push you up to the front later on in this race?
I have quite a few buddies out here, so I don't think it'll be extremely hard to get some help. But you know, everybody out here wants to win. So when the help is really needed, I don't think really anybody will be there to be everybody for themselves.
Obviously, everybody wants to win at a track as historic as Daytona, but for you personally, how important would it be to kind of set the tone here this season with a checkered flag here tonight in your quest to be able to be a back-to-back champion in the Truck Series?
Oh yeah, getting locked into the playoffs in the first race really takes off all the stress of the season. You can really just focus on, driving and wait for the playoffs to come. But there's a really good field this year, so every race is going to be a challenge. So we'll just take it one step at a time.
All right, well, we're looking forward to seeing you pilot that 22 truck, starting off 11th here tonight. Hopefully we'll maybe see you in victory lane and talk to you later on this evening. Best of luck out there.
All right, thank you.
You saw that we ended up having only 19 trucks that took time in this race. 34 trucks going to be taking the green flag. So I think, what we heard Dobbs say just moments ago, right at the back, stay out of trouble early. I think that's what a lot of drivers attempted, not laying down a qualifying lap, but we are underway here tonight at Daytona. Boyd Hogan on the inside, Andrew Navarro on the top side, lead us into turn one for the first time this season.
I'm interested to see how they're going to approach this here, Seth. Are these drivers going to really battle hard for position, or are they all going to single file out and take it easy? It's a very long race here tonight, plus we do have that stage end at lap 40.
Brandon Andrews is the 24, the Exalta Chevy Silverado there on the inside, behind Boyd Hogan, pushing the 96 out into the front, clear of that outside line. Andrew Navarro has behind him the 51 of Ralph Hutchinson, trying to offer some aid, but it looks like the numbers are on the inside line, and Boyd Hogan is going to cross the line and lead the first lap of the 2022 season.
Boyd Hogan gets the season started off right. Does he stay up there? Does someone maybe make a move on him here? The high side not getting very much help right now, and the low side definitely has the upper hand right now. No one is going up there with the 42 and the 51 of Ralph and Andrew Navarro.
It's only about maybe 5 trucks in the entire top 20 that are running up on that outside line, and they are not all lined up nose to tail, so they are certainly going to lose positions. The freight train is on the inside, and much like we're used to seeing at Daytona, drivers that are up towards the front that don't necessarily want to be there, saw quite a number of them duck down below the double yellow line on the first lap on the back straightaway, drop back to the end of this lead pack, and just kind of preserve their stuff. So right now, the big question is for these guys, with knowing that stage 40 caution is going to be coming out, that lap 40 stage caution is going to be coming out, would they be theoretically be strategizing for that point of this race, or would they be strategizing potentially for a first round of green flag pit stops? Because I do believe that they would have to pit before we got to the stage yellow.
Yeah, from my calculations, they're gonna pit. I'm thinking a little before the stage break, maybe around lap 25 to 30 here tonight. So I would plan for some green flag pit stops here. That would be my best get, and especially since they're all single filing out. So I expect these drivers to take it fairly easy. So there's a good chance we could have green flag pit stops here tonight, Seth.
Saw there moments ago the pole sitter Boyd Hogan, who led the first couple laps of this race, bailing up to the top side and now has fallen back outside the top 15. He's gotten his laps led, and he has now gotten himself back to a safe position. That turns the race lead over now to Brandon Andrews. Barrett Paulhemus, he's going to line up in second. Robert Anderson, Vincent Arthur, and Ralph Hutchinson right now the top 5. The battle is side by side for 6, where Andrew Navarro doggedly continues to stay on that top side, trying to make something happen. I believe he now has David Santini in the 12 up there with him.
He has not given up on that high side one bit, Seth, but no one really wants to go up there. There's no takers right now. Everybody's just taking it very easy at the beginning of this race. We now have 3 cars up there on the high side, and that's the most I've seen so far at the beginning portion of this race. Now we have 4. Right when I'm talking about this, the high side is beginning to get things together.
Barrett Paulhemus jumping up there. You got to be careful when there's a run coming on that top side that you don't jump up there and stall out the momentum. It looks like Paulhemus going to use that run on the top side to clear Andrews for the top position. He moves down to the double yellow line, but Hutchinson stays up there still on the top side, and that outside line finally making some gains. Hutchinson, barely by about half a truck length, going to lead that lap. And look at the push he is getting from Andrew Navarro. You notice how the bumpers weren't exactly lined up, allowing Navarro to still get a little bit of air to the front end of his truck, not having that engine overheating, but at the same time, keeping the bumpers locked and keeping the momentum pushed forward. Navarro now goes to the point.
Yeah, Navarro was able to jump right in front of Brandon in the number 24, and the 24 of Brandon giving him a great push. Not Brandon, Barrett, giving him a great push down the back straightaway into 3 and 4. That 79 truck is hooked up. A great push down the back straightaway, and they have a little bit of separation from the rest of the field, but they're going to begin to catch up here coming into the trial. Does someone maybe make a move to that high side? The high side had a little bit of momentum, but it's beginning to lose it now.
34 drivers took the green, all 34 separated by less than 4.5 seconds. That's about as close as you can get from first back to last. Everybody still in the lead pack here as we draw closer to 10 laps into this race. A little bit of moving there around the second, third position, as looked like the 79 of Paulhemus wanted to jump up to the outside line, but I think the 51 of Hutchinson had too big of a run, gets alongside for the second position. Got a couple of other drivers making things happen on that top side as well. David Santini, John Gifford, they're up on that outside line, as well as I believe that is the 4 of Richard Clement. He just now actually swapped from the top side back down to the inside lines, and only 3 trucks up in that second groove.
I'll tell you what, Seth, Barrett Polhemus looks really strong. That truck looks awfully fast. He can really get it going on that back straightaway and just gives a hell of a push to that number 42 machine of Andrew Navarro.
Yeah, one thing that we have to point out with this series and this league in particular in MSRA, it is open setup, and there's a lot of different tweaks you can do to a truck to make it just a little bit more aerodynamically sound, get a little bit more speed, and that's why we're seeing drivers that may have not necessarily had the best qualifying package and qualified in the mid-pack outside the top 10. All of a sudden, we see them up here at the front and staying up at the front. Case in point, David Santini in the 12 truck running the 5th position, started deep in the field in 22nd. It's taken him less than 10 laps to now crack up inside of the top 5 as he moves to 4th.
Yeah, the number 12 of Santini jumped up there on the high side, a few laps to go, and he's been really keeping up with it, and he's been moving up, gaining spot after spot up there. He's following the number 51 of Ralph Hutchison.
And we've already got the strategy playing out here, Kyle. 5 drivers last time by dove onto pit lane for what appears to be just a fuel-only stop, potentially the only pit stop they would have to make before we get that stage caution on lap 40. Boyd Hogan, the pole sitter, was one of them. Christopher Hill, Christopher Pfeffer, as well as Channing Ballou and Braxton DeWeese. They all came down together, made their fuel-only pit stops, come back out together. Now they're hoping that we don't see a yellow flag here, I think, for these next 30 laps, so that way they can cycle around to potentially finish 1st through 5th when that stage yellow flies.
I was expecting a couple early pitters, but this is an insane strategy. It could definitely work if we keep the race green out here, though. A very bold move from those drivers. Now they're just hoping that the race keeps green.
There is a look at those 5 drivers. It looks like they may have lost one of their alliances there in Christopher Pfeffer. He's coming back down pit lane once more, so may have been hit with a speeding penalty. Not sure what the situation is. This is most definitely going to lose him a lap. There you see the leaders heading through the trial, putting him 1 lap down. So 4 trucks are certainly not going to make nearly as much speed as 5 trucks. We'll see if those 4 drivers that did come to pit lane and right now are running maybe about 10, 11 seconds ahead of the race leaders, if they can stay on the lead lap before we get to that stage yellow.
Look at this high side here, Seth. The high side is getting it going right here. The 51 of Ralph Hutchison has gone to the lead. And here comes Santini. Santini's now on the high side as the 51 drops down low. The number 12 of David Santini. You mentioned him, Seth. He's now going for the lead. Can he lead this lap coming off the corner? As a phenomenal push from John Gifford coming to the line.
Will indeed lead that lap. Not quite clear there on the inside line. Now he might be, as Gifford continues to shove the 12 of Santini further out in front. They've picked up some more allies. Chris Noble in the 53 has jumped up there to the 2nd groove, and they did for a moment have Vincent Arthur in the 19. He then jumps down to the inside line, but it's incredible that we have, 7, 8, 9 trucks usually line up on that inside line, but we're seeing as little as 2 or 3 trucks be able to hold court on that outside line. They're able to keep the draft as tight as possible and keep the momentum going forward.
These drivers on the high side right now are just linking up their bumpers just so perfectly. The number 17 and 51. The number 17 and the 12 and the 51, they've all been just working so well together up there right now. It's just working great for them. But now the 79 of Barrett Palamas is up in the lead, and he just has a lot of speed here tonight, Seth. He just seems like he might have just the best setup working for him there tonight.
Absolutely. He's had a couple of challenges to his outside, but he's been able to toe the inside line strong enough to be able to keep that 2nd lane at bay. Mention the fact that it's an open setup league, and one of the things that you can manipulate to your liking is the grill tape, and you have to wonder for some of these drivers later on in this race. We're seeing a lot of locking of bumpers, a lot of pushing. You have to wonder if they've got to be having one eye out the windshield and one eye on their water temps, making sure they don't overheat that engine, because you certainly can't win the race this early on, but you can certainly lose it. And the last thing you want to do is DNF early in the season opener due to a mechanical failure.
Yeah, that's the last thing you would want, Seth. Just beating yourself at a track like Daytona. Who doesn't want to win at Daytona? It's the crown jewel of crown jewels. You want this race, or at least perform very well in it. And to take yourself out early, that would just break my heart.
You heard us talking earlier before they took the green flag with the defending champion of the series, Alan Dobbs, and he has pretty much been riding us. We got some more pit stops going on here. That was the 19, I believe, of Vincent Arthur diving onto pit lane, and he's got some others that are coming down with him. This is about a little less than halfway through the first stage, and these drivers now playing some strategy. So we had drivers pit on lap 5, we got drivers pitting as late as lap 15.
Now they're pulling a little bit of a different strategy than those other drivers. Those other drivers are going to be cutting it really close on that last stop. I think these drivers right here are kind of preparing if we end up going green the whole way. Because the way these drivers are racing right now, that is a big possibility that we go green the whole way. But what if we get a caution with 2 or 3 laps to go? Then we have a green-white checkered. That changes everything.
And more drivers waving the hands out the windshield and out the driver's side window as they come down pit lane, including the race leader, the 51 of Ralph Hutchinson. You saw the back end almost step out on him as the rear brakes locking up. He's going to lead a whole host of drivers, about maybe a good dozen coming down pit road this time. So less than 20 laps into this race, and all but 12 drivers have theoretically made their pit stop here for this stage.
And I was looking on pit road right there, Seth, and Ralph Hutchison, he missed his box completely and had to back up into his box and cost him a lot of time. Same thing with Rick Webb. He did the same thing, except he went completely sideways into his box. So that's a big problem right there for those two drivers.
Costly mistakes that you cannot afford at a track like Daytona, because even the most minuscule of seconds can cost you a lot of time on the racetrack. As Greg Newsom down pit lane, the 53 of Chris Noble down pit road this time. I saw another driver, I think that was Noble, that overshot his pit box. James Duke, Bill Dolph, they came down pit road this time. And, well, it's early on in this race, so you might be able to mount a bit of a comeback from an early mistake, but it looks like the speeding police are doing a little bit of work here in the early stages. Kevin Roy came down with the second batch of drivers on lap 15, and he was pegged for speed, and he has now since lost a lap to the race leaders. He might get that back when everything cycles around, but we'll have to wait and see as more drivers going to peel off onto pit lane this time. Looks like they're going to be led by the 48 of Jamie Knopf.
You have 4 more drivers come down pit road. Jamie Knopf is one of them. We got Daniel Simmons down here, a couple of other drivers down here. It looks like everybody's going to get into their box okay. We have a couple more drivers that still need to make that stop. We have 4 more drivers that have not came down pit road yet.
You talked about a number of drivers overshooting their pit stalls. Would that be the nighttime conditions with the asphalt to concrete pit stall transition, just making it a little bit slicker, especially with the heat that's been built up in these tires?
A mixture of that, and it's just also a high-pressure race here, Seth. Like I mentioned, it's the crown jewels of crown jewels. This is Daytona. Who doesn't want to win Daytona, especially here in the Speedlab Truck Series? Who doesn't want to win that? The Reaper Speedlab Truck Series opener. Who doesn't want to win that?
And this is going to be interesting strategy. One thing you don't want to do at a super speedway is come to pit lane under green flag conditions alone. That is what Barrett Paul Hemus is doing from the race lead. The other 3 drivers there, Santini, Gifford, and Hassler, electing to stay out an extra lap. So it'll be interesting to see now where the 79 is going to cycle around in all of this. I'm not certain he's going to cycle back to the race lead.
Just have to wait and see right here. Still have a couple more drivers that have to come down pit road. Will they make the stop this time, or are they going to keep on going around? They will go around once again. The 12, the 17, and the 25 are going to stay out once again.
And you have to wonder what the strategy is here for these 3 drivers in particular, because we know they're going to have to pit before the stage completion. Right now, they've only got 2 drivers trapped a lap down, so it's not like they have half the field that would have to take a wave around if a caution were to come out. Maybe the plan is to come down pit lane later on before the stage comes to a close and take on less fuel, spend less time on pit lane, and find yourself still cycled out to first, second, and third when we get to that stage caution.
That is definitely a strategy idea, Seth. And you see these drivers are about to catch up to that group of drivers right up in front of them. So then they can maybe even pick up their speed even a little bit more. And at that point, they can kind of sit in the back of this little pack of cars right here and save their gas a little bit more.
Yeah, that would be a group from 27th, rather, back to 30th. And look at this. Look at these 2 trucks fly around this group of 6 or 7. That shows you the difference between the open speedway setup races and fixed setup races. Clearly, Santini and Gifford have themselves some hot rockets with the setups they've got underneath their respective Silverados. They were able to bypass an entire pack of trucks just by themselves.
Yeah, those 2 drivers ran 2 of some of the quickest laps so far here tonight on that last time by. They just get linked up in the way their setups are. They just work so well together. It seems like you can kind of do that tandem drafting here with the way these open setups are. It's a completely different feel than a fixed setup race.
Right now, the 17 and the 12, who are first and third in this line, they are 2 drivers that were waiting to come to pit lane. The other driver is right there. That's the 25 of Corey Hassler. Now, if we're looking for when these drivers hit pit lane of who could possibly cycle around as the race leader, we got to drop back to the second group. This is the 4th place battle going on. Agnell Phillip in the 94, Boyd Hogan in the 96, Vincent Arthur the 19. These are drivers that are right now battling to see who potentially could cycle around as the race leader, potentially the race winner of the first stage of the season.
Definitely some bragging rights right there, Seth. If you're able to get that first stage under your belt, that would have to feel fantastic to start off your season winning the first stage. And you see this pack, they're not giving each other anything right now. The inside and the high side are going back and forth right now.
As they continue to race side by side for that 4th position, and we await for our top 3 to eventually come down pit lane. Of course, the sponsor of the series, Reaper Speedlabs, here for the truck series. So we're going to see if we can quickly talk with the, well, I believe we had him for a brief moment, and I believe he is no longer available. So never mind. We're going to talk with the owner of Reaper Speedlabs, but I believe he had a prior engagement. Maybe we'll get to talk to him next week as we continue to watch the battle up towards the front. But we're going to drop back and put our focus again on this battle for 4th place on back because, you know, we always ask it at the super speedways. Not a question of if, but when the big one is going to strike. And if we were to have a caution come out here in the first stage, I think this would be the group where something like that could potentially be brewing.
Oh, and there was a wreck in the trial where the number 6 goes around. The pack where the leaders are, and Corey Hassler. A lot of damage on the right side. It looks like we're going to keep it green. Hassler goes through the grass.
It was Bill Dolph in the 6 truck. Gets it back up onto the racing surface, exiting the tri-oval. He will keep going. To your point, no yellow flag coming out here. And Hassler in the 25 was running in the 3rd position. There you can see the damage on the front end.
Some heavy damage right there to the number 25. Has been a front runner most of the race. And the other 2 leaders right now are still getting into it with these essentially lap cars right now. 3 wide up there. It's just, this is crazy right now.
The reason that it's getting so crazy here in this pack is because not only do you have Santini and Gifford battling for the race lead, the drivers behind them all 1 lap down, they're battling for the free pass positions should we see a caution. When yellow flag comes out, the field is frozen, and so you want to make sure if you're one of the lap down machines that you have even something as minute as a splitter ahead of the rest of the competition to make sure you're going to be the driver that gets that free pass and get back in the lead lap.
The battle within the battle here at Daytona, it always comes down to that. And you're seeing it right here on the track. Drivers battling it out to get that first spot as essentially the lucky dog. But Gifford and Santini out in front of this group of drivers right here. Still very early on as we've just passed the quarter-way mark here in the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250 here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series.
Now we've got the top two in this group with the lap trucks. Corey Hassler has now fallen 15 seconds back, kind of on an island of his own in that third position. It's then another 9 seconds back to 4th place to 14th, being led right now by Boyd Hogan. There's then a fourth group being led by 15th place Robert Anderson. There's about maybe a good 10 to 12 trucks in that one. And then the rest of the drivers are currently off the lead lap. But for those drivers currently still on the lead lap, not time to panic. Still going to have that yellow flag coming out, an opportunity to bunch back up. But if you're one of these drivers that are up here a lap down, just how much more of a sense of urgency is there knowing that there is the guaranteed caution coming out? You've got about 12 and a half laps when they get to the back straightaway to make something happen to get that free pass position.
These drivers, you know that they're going to be pushing it hard. You know that they're going to be pushing it hard to get into that spot before we get to the end of the stage. Just a few laps until we get to the end of the stage. You mentioned it, Seth, just over 10 laps to go in this first stage.
John Gifford continuing to show the way. Santini was out in front for a good portion of this run when the green flag pit stops were beginning for the majority of the field, but he seems content now to fall behind Gifford and push him. They're keeping the other lap machines at bay. Rick Webb in the 3, James Duke in the 76, John Theodore there in the 27. These drivers all right now battling for the free pass position. As now the 27 jumping up there, John Theodore trying to make something happen, trying to pick up a spot or two, trying to get to the right rear quarter panel of Rick Webb, but nothing doing there as he'll lose a spot to the 76 of James Duke. And we've had an exchange for the now third position. Boyd Hogan, Alan Dobbs, Christopher Hill, they've all reeled in that wounded machine, the 25 of Corey Hassler. That whole group has bypassed him, so Hassler in maybe about a straightaway drops from third all the way back to 14th place and still running tremendously off the pace. I would think that he's still going to have to pit before the stage comes to a close. I'm shocked he hasn't elected to come down pit lane sooner than he has.
Yeah, Hassler is driving a wounded truck right now, around 5 seconds off of the pace of that pack that just drove past him. Hassler in that 25 is definitely not having a good time after that incident with the number 6 of Bill Dolph just a few laps ago. Just heavy damage on that machine. And you're watching this pack just, they're putting on some great racing over here.
Certainly are. Boyd Hogan with Christopher Hill on that inside line. The defending champion Alan Dobbs on the top side with outside pole sitter Andrew Navarro double wide, 4 rows deep. We were going to talk with Randall Fox, the owner of Reaper Speedlab. He's a truck builder. And we want to remind everybody that if you go over to Reaper Street Labs, you use the code MSRA, you will receive a discount of $15 off the RTP package. That offer is available until the 23rd of February. So I remind everybody about that. Of course, the sponsor of the series here, Reaper Speedlab Truck Series, and really cool that they came on board here for the entirety of the season. What's looking like a very exciting schedule as well. These drivers doing some speedway racing, or super speedway racing here tonight. Next time out, they're going to be doing some speedway / super speedway racing when we head to Auto Club as Santini finally comes down to the attention of his crew. He's going to make his first pit stop of the night, and I believe that also down pit road that last time as well was the 17 of John Gifford, who appears to have actually had an issue. He lost a lap, and he is still sitting on pit lane, so I'm not certain what happened with him, a driver who was actually just out in front moments ago.
I'm trying to look back at it, Seth, right now. I don't know what happened to John Gifford in the 17. I'm looking back at it now. It looks like he had actually spun coming onto pit lane with contact from the number 3 machine of Rick Webb. And Rick Webb had a very hard contact to the inside wall, and Gifford immediately towed it and went to his pit box with heavy damage.
We'll see if we can drop back and get a replay of that. Gifford was out in front for a good portion of this green flag run. David Santini was riding behind him. Santini was able to get down to his stall, but not as lucky was the driver, the 17. Here it was coming off of turn number 4. Here's the 17 of Gifford. Got his left sides down that double yellow line. That kind of paint grip there, the transition of the apron to the banking of turn 4 just got him completely out of shape and really nowhere for the 3 of Rick Webb to be able to go.
Yeah, there's nowhere for Webb to go, and heavy contact to that inside wall for Webb. Webb had a very heavy hit. A big hit as well for the 17, but he'll be able to get out there and get some laps and try to get as many points as he can. And while that happened, we have a new race leader. Boyd Hogan, your pole sitter, is back in the race lead, getting a push on that inside from Christopher Hill.
Boyd Hogan's actually been in the lead maybe 3 or 4 times that last lap. He and Alan Dobbs keep taking a turn out in front. Dobbs again on that top side, battling hard with Navarro as his wingman. Christopher Hill committed to the 96 on the inside line. You know, you and I, Kyle, called a truck race last night here at Daytona and saw kind of a little bit of deja vu where inside and outside line, neither lane able to get an edge. They continue to be double wide all the way back through the pack.
That's what I've been seeing here at Daytona this week. The inside and the high side, as long as there's drivers committed on both sides, neither side's able to really get an advantage at all. And you're seeing that right now with the number 96 of Boyd Hogan and last season's champion, the number 22 of Alan Dobbs. Alan Dobbs continues to get that push from Navarro on the high side, and they really have a big run on those back straightaways like we saw yesterday as well.
Going to be 5 laps to go this time by in the first stage. A little loose there was the 42 of Navarro. Might have got a little bit of a shove from Vincent Arthur there heading into the tri-oval area. They all keep it pointing in the right direction. Doesn't look like they lost any momentum as Boyd Hogan continues to forge ahead in that inside line. He's now clear of the top side. We'll see if Dobbs has an answer down the back straightaway. An update on John Gifford. He still sits on pit lane 5 laps down. Repairs continue to be made to his machine. Same for the 3 of Rick Webb. We right now have 28 drivers on the lead lap after green flag pit stops have cycled around. Kevin Roy right now firmly in control of the free pass position when we have that yellow flag come out. And look at this, trying to maneuver their way around this pack of trucks that were on the tail end of the lead lap. So that changes up the free pass position, but that lead group caught this group in a hurry and really having to make some evasive maneuvers, almost 3 wide a couple of occasions there.
I was extremely impressed of what I saw in 3 and 4. All those drivers just jumped up to the high side like it was a dance routine, all of them at one time, and I'm surprised none of them wrecked right there. That was very impressive, but I'm also going to knock on wood because it might be a little early to call that.
Yeah, Vincent Arthur might have brushed the wall there out of turn number 4, but you see that bright orange 19 still there 5th on the outside line. And you saw that move down the middle to the inside line and out of turn number 2 by Alan Dobbs. Kind of a bit of a do-si-do there. Hogan was on the bottom, Dobbs was on the top. They've swapped positions now with Dobbs down on that double yellow line.
Dobbs riding the inside line right now with the push from Andrew Navarro. These groups kind of pulled a little switcheroo. It was Navarro and the number 22 of Dobbs on the high side a moment ago, and the number 99 of Hill and the 96 of Hogan were on the inside. They have switched it up, and Dobbs is trying to take the lead on the inside, but Hogan continues to hold it on the high side for now.
Wow, what a tough break for Rick Webb, driver of the 3. Oh, we got a big wreck right at the front of the field. Car up and over. That's Navarro in the 42. The big one has struck early, just closing in on the end of the first stage.
A huge wreck off of the corner. It looked like Navarro went for a phenomenal ride. Maybe got caught in by the catch fence right there. Huge hits from a lot of drivers. Christopher Hill among them took a hard hit to the inside wall and immediately towed back to his pit box. Wow, huge accident here right before the end of the first stage. Drivers trying to set themselves up for that end of the race. And Navarro, he kind of looks like those cup cars that were practicing the other night with that slant.
Smoke billowing from beneath the 19 of Vincent Arthur. There you see the skewed suspension on the 42 of Andrew Navarro, who fortunately, after the hit into the outside safer barrier, did come back down onto the racing surface on all 4 wheels, did not go completely over. But there were a ton of trucks that were collected up in this one. This will effectively, I believe, be the stage yellow, albeit not thrown just to end the stage. It was for a race incident. We'll go back and see what happened off of turn number 4, because that happened awfully quickly. No reaction time, it seemed, for anybody to be able to avoid it.
Yeah, the way that accident happened, 3 or 4 drivers got hooked up in the wall, then it just kind of imploded on the rest of the field, and a lot of good drivers taken out of this, a lot of strong race trucks here. You see the 9 and the number 42 make contact right there, and it just imploded from that point on. Vincent Arthur with very heavy damage. Just a lot of destroyed race cars. Christopher Hill is now out of the event. Christopher Hill looked like one of the strongest trucks out here tonight.
Hill was the one that got the bump from behind from Channing Ballou in the 9. They kind of got stacked up there. The lap machine, the 66 of Christopher Pfeffer was involved there. You see the shot to the inside wall that Hill took. That effectively takes him out of the race. We're going to get a couple of onboards here as well. And boy, a lot of drivers up in that lead pack. A lot of drivers that were running inside of the top 10, looking to end off the first stage with at least a decent finish and good starting track position for the final stage of this race. All of a sudden, that strategy has gone horribly, horribly wrong. And to your point, it's ended the night for a number of them.
And just craziness unfolding here at the end of the stage. The stage is ending, and just complete craziness. Like I said, people just trying to set up themselves for the end of the race, trying to set themselves up for possibly the last pit stop or second to last pit stop of the event. Just saw the onboard of Vincent Arthur. He took a very heavy hit into that outside wall. Like I said, 3 or 4 drivers just all kind of all just hooked up in the outside wall and just imploded on the rest of the field. And a lot of drivers got sent into the inside wall because of that, and a lot of destroyed race trucks. And some of those trucks were the strongest trucks of the night.
Andrew Navarro led early on in this race, started on the outside of the front row. There you saw his onboard and his wild ride through the air. He is out of this race, joining Christopher Hill, and it appears now the 17 of John Gifford. We documented that the 3 of Rick Webb was out of the race, but it appears he has since returned back to the server and is back out onto the racetrack, so he is not out of this event, and he will look to pick up as many points as he can before the conclusion of this race. And that's the thing, too. When we see drivers that have early issues in super speedway races, you know, they get the repairs done on pit lane. Yes, they lose a ton of laps, but when you see a big wreck like that take place and pretty much end the day of very competitive drivers, that's an opportunity for drivers that, if the car or the truck in this case is still at least able to run around the racetrack and log laps, those are valuable positions and valuable points that could be a difference maker by the time we get to the end of the regular season and get ready for playoffs.
You gotta think big picture when you come to Daytona. Even if you have a destroyed race car, or in this case, a race truck, just stay out there and try to get as many points as you can. Come in and get your repairs. Go back out there, get as many points as you can. It's a long season here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series, and we're only getting started here at Daytona. And the lights are out on the pace truck here, Seth. Looks like we're going to go green flag racing here off 3 and 4.
Absolutely. You're watching the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250 here tonight at Daytona International Speedway, as Boyd Hogan and Alan Dobbs have the field in tow. Looks like there's going to be 31 trucks that are going to come down here to the green flag as we begin the second and final stage here at Daytona International Speedway. Up through the gears goes Boyd Hogan, gets himself a little bit of distance between himself and the 24. Maybe that was by design, because Alan Dobbs swaps down to the inside and now goes down below the WL line. I'm almost wondering if maybe there could have been a restart violation on the 22 and he's serving a subsequent penalty, dropping to the rear of the field.
Alan Dobbs in the number 22, one of the strongest trucks all night, dropping to the back there after that restart, and it leaves Boyd Hogan as the leader. And Dobbs was on the high side, and him ducking to the inside like that really slowed down the high side. The high side, you see it on your screen, they really have fallen back quite far from the number 96 of Hogan.
A little bit of house cleaning as we prepare for this 60-lap dash to the finish. Officially out of the race after the incident we saw a few laps ago. Andrew Navarro, Christopher Hill, and John Gifford. Kevin Roy was the recipient of the lucky dog under the last caution. 21 drivers on the lead lap at this point in time as Hogan, Andrews, and Jurgensen. That is your top three. Jamie Knopf now up to fourth. Robert Tracy currently in fifth. We're seeing some names all of a sudden, Kyle, that we haven't talked about all night. They're up here now when it matters the most, knowing that this is now the strategizing towards that checkered flag.
Yeah, Jurgensen and Robert Tracy, I don't think we've mentioned either of those two names all night. And now both of them are up here in the top 5. And this whole pack has kind of calmed down and has gotten into a single file line. Does anybody try to get that high side to work? We saw it on the last run at the beginning of the run before the pit stops happened. 2 or 3 drivers were consistently up there on the high side until they were able to get it to work. And we've seen the tandem drafting. That has been able to work as well here tonight. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone wants to get up there and maybe lead some laps. They're going to be talking on the radio with maybe some teammates or some drivers they like to work with.
Well, sometimes the attrition of super speedway racing can cause you to have to call an audible on your strategy. Remember, we saw John Gifford and David Santini working together in tandem for a majority of that first stage. Santini now back in the 11th position. He's got to look for some more allies now. The 17 back in the garage area, so we'll have to follow him and see if he's going to be able to make his way back up to the front. If he does so, who's he going to bring along with him?
We've definitely seen the speed out of that truck so far here tonight. So whoever he's working with, I would work with them if I wanted to get up to the front. But me personally, I just want to wait in the back right now until the very end of this race, until after that last pit stop.
I'm on board with David Santini right now in the 11th position. Up ahead, you've got the lap truck of Chris Noble up on the top side. It's I believe the 51 of, make that correction, the 61 of TJ Crampton just in front of him. Crampton along with his teammate Matthew Van Gelder. We haven't talked about the 16 or the 61 tonight. They've now made their way up inside of the top 10. Another couple of teammates also up just ahead of them, the 47 and the 46 of Robert Anderson and Daniel Simmons. So we're seeing the teammates all finding an opportunity to link up, and a couple of those teammates have been able to make their way up here inside of the top 10. But to your point, we saw an outside line form in the early stages of this race. Doesn't look like, at least up here inside the top 5, anybody wants to test the waters. The run is generating from about the 8th position on back, though, with that second groove.
I would begin to watch that high side now, though, Seth, because the one they have back in that bus right now is Barrett Polimas, and and I've been watching him all night. He just seems like the fastest truck. His setup it just works so well. And you see that high side, it's beginning to make up a little bit of ground right now, Seth, and they're beginning to get up there into the top 5.
He's actually working with some lap machines here on this outside line. Got the 53 of Chris Noble, as well as the 23 of Greg Newsom. They've also got the 51 of Ralph Hutchinson up there with him. Hutchinson right now in the 6th position. So it just kind of goes to show that even though a few of these trucks may be off the same lap as the race leaders, they definitely still have race-winning speed, and they're just hoping that a caution comes out, helps to put them back into the hunt for this victory.
I'm watching the 53 truck right now, Seth, and I saw him on the back straightaway last time by, and I saw it a little bit even out of 3 and 4. He's really trying to work that side draft as best he can. He's getting that push from the number 51 behind him, and he's really trying to pull the drivers next to him back, and so far it's been working, and I'm going to be watching for it on the back straightaway this time by to see if he does it again.
Ooh, we had a driver stepping out there. I believe that was the 23 that went a little bit higher behind the 51 of Hutchinson. That would be Greg Newsom, thinking about making a move 3 wide. He tucks back in line, though, as 53 of Noble continuing to tow that outside line. He's got them at least up alongside the 3rd place truck of Jurgensen and trying to make up more ground. Ooh, was he trying to tuck down there in front of the 48 of Knopf? I think he was. Got a slow truck down there on the apron that they're going to make their way around. That, I believe, was the 3 of Rick Webb. Yes, it was. Just now moved his way up to the 28th position, just bypassed Vincent Arthur, another driver back in the garage area, and that was the 66 of Christopher Pfeffer. They tried to repair that truck as best they could. Apparently his evening is done. He'll finish out tonight's season opener in the 33rd position.
You hate to see it, Seth. A good amount of drivers already out of this event very early on, just about to approach the halfway point. Still over 50 laps to go here at Daytona. That's a good amount of time still left in this race for anything to happen. And I don't think that's going to be the last accident that we see here tonight, Seth.
Absolutely. We are now halfway through tonight's season opener. I want to give a big shout out to tonight's race sponsor, Guy C. Lee Building Materials. They've been supporting the building industry in North Carolina for nearly a century. They not only distribute high-quality brand-name building supplies, but also operate a mill that produces and distributes interior and exterior doors and glass, as well as custom glass work. The owners love racing and have come on board to support the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. For more information, visit www.guyclee, that's GUYCLEE.com. Well, things are getting racy from about the 4th position on back. This is reminding me a lot of what we've seen here this week with these trucks. When they get racy, they get a little bit unsteady. There's a lot of movement that goes on, and usually it's that movement that leads to the little mistakes that trigger the big wrecks.
Just that little bit of movement. Oh, and right when that's going on, the number 53 in Noble wrecking to the inside of the racetrack. That little bit of movement.
There was another truck that was involved in that appears to have gathered it up and kept going. Now you'll see there's no yellow flag. That's because the spin never took place until after they were down below the WL line. So theoretically, that was off the racing surface. So we still stay under green despite the incident off of turn 2.
Yeah, the car that he made contact with looked to be the number 14 of Robert Tracy, who was just in the top 5 just a few laps ago, and now he's struggling just to trying to keep up with the pack, and so far he's able to do it, but I'm just curious on how badly that damage might affect him later on in the race.
Tracy now back in line with the lead pack still, but in the 18th position as we drop back to see what happened off of turn number 2, and watch the red and white 53 on the top side. It looks like he was awfully loose even before they got off of turn number 2. Maybe an errant bump from behind, not certain, but certainly the 53 getting the worst of that as he noses it down into the inside safer barrier. Able to continue on, though, but no yellow flag coming out to save him.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Seth, the accident occurred off of the racing surface, so no caution flag, and that's also why we didn't have the caution flag earlier with Corey Hassler and the number 6. That's another reason why we didn't have that caution flag earlier, because their wreck was also off the racing surface into the tri-oval. While that was going on, Barrett Polimas has taken the head of that high side, and they're beginning to come up right now. He's getting a push from that number 94, Phillip. I haven't think we've mentioned his name all night as well, Seth.
We have not, that being Agno Phillip, and right behind him, you got some fast trucks actually in this outside line. Troy Hutchinson is up there. You've also got the 12 of David Santini. You also got a lap machine, but a very fast lap machine, the 27 of John Theodore. So they're making some hay up there as they're going to have to maneuver their way through the middle by the 19 of Vincent Arthur, but as we saw early on in this race, if there's someone that's going to be able to get this outside line to the front, it's got to be that 79 truck, one of the fastest trucks in the field. Actually, it's almost kind of a battle between the two fastest trucks of the night here. The 96 leading the inside line, the 79 leading the outside line. We'll see which line's going to prevail here in the next lap or two.
Hogan's been doing very well on that inside line for now. They're going to pass another lap car here. It looks like it's Rick Webb once again, the number 3 machine they're getting by, and they're going to get past him cleanly. But Hogan's been doing a phenomenal job. Him and Andrews are just working so well together. These drivers seem to have a good amount of chemistry. They've been nose to bumper for the last 15 laps.
Battle is for the 4th position. 48 on the inside line, trying to draft up here to the top 3 who have a little bit of daylight. You can see it's about half a truck length from Jurgensen's 31 back to the 48 of Jamie Knopf. We'll see if he's going to be able to draft back up there. And look at this 24 of Brandon Andrews. I think a big reason why Boyd Hogan's been able to keep himself out in front and not really have a challenge on that outside line. Brandon Andrews has stayed very committed to the 96. He's actually been tandeming right up to his back bumper a number of laps consistently. So I'll tell you what, we talk about finding allies, finding people you want to work with. You obviously want to look for the fast trucks, but even more so, you want to look for a driver that you know is going to be able to push you when it matters the most. I think with right now what Brandon Andrews is doing, he's putting together a pretty good resume where drivers are going to take notice of, hey, in the closing stage of this race, that's the guy I'm going to want to have behind me pushing me.
Yeah, drivers are always looking out to see who is the best at pushing, and that number 24, Brandon Andrews, has been one of the best, if not the best truck at it here tonight, following that number 96 of Boyd Hogan. And as I'm mentioning this, the number 79, Barrett, he's coming on the high side. He's getting that push from Phillip and the number 94. They're getting a good run. They were almost nose to nose, the number 96 and 79 coming into 3 and 4 last time around.
Got the momentum, they've got the numbers as well. 5, 6 trucks up on that outside line. They got the 79 of Polhemus up alongside of Brandon Andrews for second. Let's see what they can do down the back straightaway here. Again, back alongside the 24. Almost to the right rear quarter panel of Boyd Hogan going into turn 3. They're not quite going to be able to get Polhemus alongside of Hogan here through 3 and 4. They'll try again here on the tri-oval. Another slow truck to deal with here in a moment. Looks like they're going to be able to make their way by. Ooh, man, this is a tight place on the racetrack, though, to have to avoid a slower truck, one of the most narrowest portions of Daytona International Speedway here through the tri-oval.
Yeah, that's the scariest portion of the track, in my opinion, set to go 3 wide. It's almost nerve-wracking. I can just feel the whiteness in my knuckles when I'm going through the tri-oval 3 wide.
And you're watching the Guy Seeley Building Materials Daytona 250 for the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. A big shout out to Reaper Speedlabs and reaperspeedlabs.com, where you can head on over and use the code MSRA, where you'll receive a $15 discount off the RTP package. The offer is still available until February 23rd. And we are starting to close in here on talking about potentially another round of green flag pit stops, Kyle. Most of these drivers anywhere from 18 to 20 laps on their current stint. We saw some drivers come down as early as lap 5, other drivers like to come down as late as lap 25 during that first 40-lap stint to the stage caution. Going to be interesting to see when they elect to come to pit road at this point, because I'm not certain what exactly the fuel window is for these drivers, but one would have to think with us getting a restart with around 60 laps to go, they'd want to split this entire final stage in half and only make one pit stop from here to the checkered flag.
Like I mentioned earlier, Seth, I was thinking the fuel window was roughly around 25 to 30 laps. I don't really think they can actually make it 30 laps, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see some possible takers. Some of those drivers that are maybe hanging out at the back of this pack and just surviving off the draft, and they're just not using very much gas in their vehicles, just sitting in the back of the pack and just sitting in the draft. Those would be the drivers I would expect to maybe try to make it 30 and 30 and split the run in half. But these drivers that are up near the front, they're just getting too much clean air to their nose, too much pedal to the floor for them to save enough gas to possibly get to the finish on one more stop.
You saw there moments ago the 53 of Chris Noble going a second lap down after his incident off of turn 2 that did not bring out the yellow. Another lap truck on the top side. That's Rick Webb again in the 3. Talk about the battle within the battle up here at the front of the field, and it's just as prevalent now as it was back when we were in the middle of the green flag pit stop cycles. There's 4 trucks that are separated by less than 0.2 of a second that are battling for that free pass position. Greg Newsom right now holds it in the 23, and there is a yellow flag. It's going to be Corey Hassler, I believe, in the 25. Also, the 86 of Richard Malugani, I believe, went around. This was off of turn 2.
Yeah, I was watching it. Seth, and Rick Webb was really slow up against the wall. And I hate to break this to the Brax pack, but Braxton got into him very hard up there on the high side, and that was the beginning part of this accident. It collected a couple other cars in the incident. The caution flag did not initially come out, so the race director had thrown out the caution flag.
Braxton DeWeese was running in the 11th position. We'll go back to turn 1, see how all this culminated. DeWeese was running pretty much the last truck in this lead group, and there you see the contact made. It's the 46 of Daniel Simmons going down through the grass. He got a piece of the incident also. And then we had a bunch of trucks slowing on the back straightaway. I believe that the 86 did indeed go around, as well as the 25. We'll drop back and see what happened to them. So a couple more drivers getting bits and pieces of this incident that we didn't originally know. And one thing that we definitely know for sure, Kyle, it doesn't matter if it's a stock car, it doesn't matter if it's a truck. When you're super speedway racing, you want that truck in pristine condition. You want it aerodynamically sound, because even the minutest little ripple on the front end of the race car could be the difference between a couple miles per hour lost or gained on straightaway speed.
Yeah, every little bit counts when it comes to these race cars, especially at the super speedways. A little dent on your vehicle could affect you just so much. Me personally, if I was a real life race car driver, I wouldn't even want you to touch my car until race day. I'm not risking a thing, not a single dent, nothing, not a single scratch, because these cars are they need to be, like you said, aerodynamically sound. They need to be for a track like Daytona or Talladega. They just do not handle properly, and they just do not keep up in the pace. Some of these drivers might be able to stay in the draft with a little bit of damage, but they will not be able to lead a line, as they will hold that line up.
Saw the battle off pit road. Boyd Hogan hitting that number 1 pit stall as the pole sitter of tonight's race. First off of pit lane. He's going to be the one to lead us back to green. Brandon Andrews, Barrett, Paul Hemus, Jamie Knopf, and Ralph Hutchinson. Those were the top 5 coming off of pit road, preparing us for a restart, which will be with less than 40 laps to go, more than likely around the 35 lap to go mark. The free pass position, we were talking about how it was really close between Dolph, Newsom, Duke, and Theodore. It's Greg Newsom who's going to get the lucky dog under this yellow flag. So we will have 22 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. A couple of drivers look like they might be electing to take a wave around here. One of those is the 53 of Chris Noble. And maybe they're actually just going to come down pit road this time. Oh, actually, look at this. Race leader Boyd Hogan's back down pit lane. Everybody's back down pit lane. What is this? Topping off the fuel tank, maybe?
That's what it seems like here, Seth. But from my calculations on the pit window, I'm not necessarily seeing it because I don't see why they would be coming down at this moment. Maybe they're trying to pit at a certain point in the run.
It was gas and go for the pole sitter and just about everybody else behind him. So now things get really interesting in terms of the strategy. This says to me that all of these drivers that came down pit lane, they think that there's a possibility that this race could go green to the finish. They want to make sure that they're going to have the fuel to be able to make it the rest of the way. Whereas you've got other drivers that are adhering to an entirely different strategy. Robert Anderson stayed out, and he's going to inherit the lead. Troy Hutchinson, Matthew Van Gelder, Richard Clement, they all elected to stay out, so they will be restarting this race up inside of the top 5.
And really thinking it over in my head, Seth, this could be actually a really good move from these drivers because these drivers will have a little bit more fuel in their tanks compared to these other drivers. I'm pretty sure they're going to have to make one more stop, but that means they can go as far as they can on that tank and they don't have to put quite as much fuel in their tank as these other drivers, maybe propelling them to a slightly shorter pit stop, which would propel them farther up in the running order at near the end of the race.
Boy, this is going to get really interesting to see how this plays out now. And a little bit of monkey see, monkey do. Robert Anderson and the rest of the drivers that stayed out, now they're down pit road this time. So, wow. Now everybody's coming back down to top off again. Even Boyd Hogan and company are coming back down to top off again. So, this is very interesting, very unorthodox strategy if you ask me. Boy, a lot of wheels turning down there on pit road.
Seth, I've called a good amount of races at Daytona and Talladega, but I don't think I've ever quite seen something like this. I've seen drivers come down and top off maybe one time, but to see the whole field come down and top off their tank, not one, not two, but 3 times. This is very peculiar stuff here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series opener in the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250. This is a very interesting way to start off the season right here on pit lane.
Yeah, I'm with you. This has now completely changed the landscape of this race in terms of what we thought we knew. Apparently, the drivers have an entirely different ulterior motive in terms of their strategy. And look who this has turned the race lead over to here for the upcoming restart with 35 to go. The 89 of Kevin Roy, who 2 cautions ago got the lucky dog to get back on the lead lap. He's going to be the one to lead us back to green. Nathan Jurgensen, Agnel Phillip, Patrick Stein, who is the first time we've mentioned the 98 all night long, and Robert Anderson, the 47. That's going to be the top 5 when we get ready to go back green flag racing. And you see the somewhat staggered looking start. The reason being, all the drivers that came back down pit road on the last lap, they theoretically came down a closed pit lane, and so therefore they have to start EOL on the field, end of the longest line. The end of the longest line is the entire inside line. So a very strange looking restart as we get back underway here at Daytona.
Some very interesting stuff happening here, Seth. And the number 89 of Kevin Roy being able to just have the lead for the moment there at least was very impressive. Because not too long ago, like you said, Seth, he was a lap down and got that lucky dog, but he got that lap down from getting a black flag on pit road, and he was able to come back from that. A very, very impressive performance so far from Roy. Just the fact that he is up here means a lot.
See, a connection problem there for the 6 of Bill Dolph right in front of the field as well. He had just gotten himself back on the tail end of the lead lap, getting ahead of race leader Nathan Jurgensen, but now Jurgensen and Agnel Phillip, they're going to work together. We got a caution, big wreck in the back. Someone has hit the outside wall a ton. Couldn't tell who that was. A couple other trucks collected up in it.
I was watching that, Seth, and that was completely crazy. The number 6 of Bill Dolph was involved in an accident that no one knew he was involved in. He had blinked out and he came back, and when he came back, he was flipping over other trucks immediately when he came back and landed in a couple of these unlucky trucks and these trucks got caught up in an accident because of the number 6 truck. That was just insanity. This number 6 truck was literally doing gymnastics while blinking out.
See if we can pinpoint the other drivers that he collected up. I believe one of them, I thought it was the 86, but it was not. 53 was one that made contact, Chris Noble. And I believe that the other one was the 98 of Patrick Stein, who was up inside of the top 5 here on this upcoming restart. Here's a look at it. A couple of trucks further back there making an evasive maneuver down to the inside. Boy, that was that could have been a lot worse, to be honest, with the truck disappearing and reappearing up there in that lead pack.
Oh, that could have been a lot worse, but a couple of those drivers are able to basically just drive right on through his truck because his truck was blinking out. And in iRacing, usually it will let you kind of just drive through that vehicle when they're just blinking out that bad, but it doesn't always tend to work out like that. And you saw it there live on your screen. A couple of more good trucks taken out there. The 16 probably getting one of the worst hits out of it.
That was Matthew Van Gelder in the 16 machine. There was another truck further back as well that got a piece of the action. I believe it could have possibly been the 7 of Chuck Waldrop. That brings out the third caution of the day here at Daytona. This yellow flag going to put the 27 of John Theodore back on the lead lap. So another running trend that we have at super speedways is with the late race yellows coming out, more and more drivers getting the free passes, getting back in the lead lap, and still having a shot at winning this race. But a duo that we really haven't seen up at the front, at least in the early stages of this race, Nathan Jurgensen, the 31, and Agno Phillip in the 94, all of a sudden they are up here in the top 2 positions. Be interesting to see what they have for the Hogans and the Sentinis and other drivers that we have seen up here at the front of the field all night long.
We're getting towards the end of the race here, Seth, and we just had 2 back-to-back cautions. Are these drivers beginning to get a little bit excited? I know that last accident was because of the 6's internet issues, but cautions tend to breed cautions, especially at a track like Daytona or Talladega, and we have just over 30 laps to go in the season opener, the crown jewels of crown jewels here at Daytona. So I know a lot of these drivers are under possibly a lot of pressure, and some of them are just getting very excited and worked up for the finish of this event.
I think the excitement level is just going to continue to ratchet up because, if we continue to have these late race yellows, there was that big question mark of whether drivers can make it on fuel. We saw drivers coming down pit lane lap after lap just to top off the fuel tank. Well, these pacing laps are going to give drivers the opportunity to save a little bit more in the tank and make it even more of a confirmation that they will reach the conclusion of this race with what they currently have fuel-wise. So I think that confidence of knowing you've got the fuel to make it to the end is going to make them have the ability to be a little bit more aggressive and start planning their moves now for the final lap of this race.
Your drivers are going to begin to get ready for the end of this race, and then some of these drivers, they need to find that dance partner, if you will. Need to find that driver to work with for the end of this race. We've seen the tandem drafting work here and there. And honestly, Seth, when we get down towards the end of this race, I could see a lot of that tandem drafting come into play.
We're going to have 21 laps left to run here in the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250. Nathan Jurgensen on the inside line. Agno Phillip will be on the outside line. Boyd Hogan lines up third. Jamie Knopf in fourth. David Santini and Troy Hutchinson are in row 3. Then Robert Tracy, who's had a bit of an eventful night, he's going to line up 7th with Kevin Roy, Patrick Stein, and Brandon Andrews completing the top 10. We have a total of 21 drivers on the lead lap. 26 drivers are currently still scored in this race. Green flag back in the air, closing in on 30 laps to go at Daytona.
Jurgensen and Phillip lead the field down to the green flag that time by. Jurgensen getting a great push from Hogan going into 1 and 2, and they really separate themselves from the field a little bit. Santini in the number 12 not too far behind.
Santini led earlier on in this race. Boyd Hogan, of course, started in the pole. He's been out in front, I believe, the most laps here tonight. How anxious is that 96 going to be to step out of line, try and get back to the front, or will he be willing to ride behind Nathan Jurgensen, at least for the moment, not stepping out of line as the top 6, top 7 single file for the time being. Agno Phillip on that outside line in the 94, dropping back to around the 8th position, trying to find a place in line.
That high side is trying to set itself up. Very unorganized back there right now on that high side. They need to get their stuff together so they can try to get up there. We've seen the high side take a couple of laps to get going on these runs.
There's the 98 of Patrick Stein. We saw that he got a little bit of contact with the blinking car or truck of Bill Dolph, bringing out the latest yellow flag, but apparently to your point there, Kyle, it did not affect him in any way damage-wise. He still runs up here inside of the top 10, looking back at the 4 of Richard Clement in the 9th position. And we talked about Kevin Roy getting back on the lead lap after getting the free pass a few cautions ago. How about the 23 of Greg Newsom right there, just back there on the left side of your screen? He got the free pass 2 cautions ago. Now he's knocking on the door of the top 10.
I've watched Newsom earlier. Newsom was one of those lap cars that was working with Polimas earlier on the high side. He just seems to have a lot of speed in the number 23 machine, so I think he's going to have something to say about this race before it's over and done with.
Jurgensen continuing to show the way, looking back at Boyd Hogan. Right now, Tundra's 1-2. Then you've got a cluster of Chevrolets of Santini and Jamie Knopf, as well as the 18 of Troy Hutchinson, is Ford F-Series. All manufacturers represented up here inside of the top 5 at this point in time. Every driver wanting to start out the season with a victory at Daytona, want to carry that momentum into the next race at Auto Club. And of course, a driver that we really haven't talked about here in the last couple of stints, the 22 of Alan Dobbs, the defending champion. We saw him up inside the top 10 earlier on in this race. He's now since fallen back into the top 15, running around the 15th, 16th position. I get the feeling, though, we haven't heard the last of him. There's a couple of guys I'm looking at back there that I don't think we've seen the last of. I think they still have something in the tank, and we're going to be seeing it here in these final less than 30 laps.
Oh, man, I'm looking at that high side right now, Seth, and these drivers are in trouble. I feel like the 2 fastest trucks of the night are hooked up right now, except for maybe Hogan, maybe the 1st and 3rd fastest cars here. Polimas and Brandon Andrews. These drivers are working together on the high side now, and they've gotten up to the number 94 and the number 51 of Hutchison and Phillip. Let's see what they can do. And now Newsom has joined them on the high side. This high side is really getting together, and it has a bunch of fast trucks up there right now.
Yeah, we were talking just a couple laps ago about Agno Phillip dropping back towards the latter half of the top 10. All of a sudden, he's hooked up with some partners, and they are moving back up to the front as it's Ralph Hutchinson in the 51 leading that top side, trying to see if he can get alongside Jurgensen for the race lead. Little bit of movement there out of the 24 of Brandon Andrews. Might have broken up that outside line's momentum just for a brief moment, as I believe Polhemus had to bail out of the throttle just a tad.
But the high side looking very strong coming out of 1 and 2 here, Seth. They're going to have a huge run coming down the back straightaway, and the number 51 is looking to take away the lead with the number 31 of Jurgensen. Will he jump down in front? He's not clear of the 31. He's still getting that push from the number 94. Phillip peeked to the middle right there, but he falls in right back behind the number 51.
Gotta wonder if Hutchinson is able to get clear on the 31 truck. Will he jump down to the inside line, or will he stay up on the top side with his wingman, Agnell Phillips? You've also got Andrews behind in the 24, Paul Hemus in the 79, Greg Newsom in the 23, 5 trucks on the top side. You've got about 15 trucks lined up on the inside line, but as we've seen all night long here, Kyle, if you got the right number of trucks, and they're all fast trucks, the numbers don't really seem to matter in that second line.
Yeah, if you have the right group of trucks together, we've even seen the tandem drafting work. Anything can happen if you have a fast enough truck and you know how to race and you know how to draft at a track like Daytona. We've seen it all night, and we're getting down to the end of this thing. We've entered the last quarter of the race. Just under 25 laps to go, coming to 24 to go right here at the line.
These drivers at this point know that they should be able to make it the scheduled distance on fuel. It's now setting up the run to the checkered flag, or potentially the run to the next yellow flag. We've seen a couple of big ones here tonight, but we know that when the aggressiveness kicks up, the more these laps tick away, that we usually see bigger and bigger wrecks. So you gotta wonder if also it's the race to position yourself to not be involved in said big one as they continue to shove down the back straightaway. Boyd Hogan was all into that back bumper of the 31, and look at how it propels Jurgensen back out to the race lead through 3 and 4.
I've mentioned it already, Seth. I really feel like we haven't had the big one yet. We've had a couple of pretty big incidents, but we haven't had the big one. And we're here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. I'm waiting for the Grim Reaper to come on down and take out a lot of this pack, because the way these drivers are racing, they're beginning to race pretty hard right now, and we still have over 20 laps to go. I imagine it's just going to pick up as we go.
Now the Grim Reaper has already been busy here tonight. 7 trucks officially in the garage area. The most recent of those, Channing Balu, who circled a couple of times around this 2.5 mile super speedway to move up to 30th, and then called it an evening. Vincent Arthur out of the race in 29th. Andrew Navarro, Christopher Hill, Christopher Pfeffer, and John Gifford. Those drivers currently going to finish 29th through 34th. Also the 6 of Bill Dolph out of the race. It looks like in the next lap or two, he will drop to 28th as Rick Webb logging laps. This is a driver who was slated to probably finish 33rd here tonight, and right now he could finish as good as 27th. While that might not seem like much, that certainly is a big improvement over where he would have finished. That's a lot more points gained than what he would have had earlier on this evening.
Yeah, Seth, when we get down to the playoffs, that might be the difference between a driver making the playoffs and missing the playoffs. Just a couple of points. That could be the difference right there. And we've seen Rick Webb. He's raced pretty much this whole entire race with a destroyed, mangled race car. But he's out there just getting as many points as he possibly can. And I commend him for that, because that's what he needs to do if he wants to possibly compete for a championship this season.
Well, a gallant strategy for Chris Noble, not coming to fruition. Under that last yellow flag, he took the wave around to get himself to 1 lap down, subsequently did not come down pit lane. Well, he couldn't make it on fuel, and 2 laps ago he had to come down to the attention of his crew for his final pit stop of the evening. He's now fallen 2 laps down, as you saw the leaders going around him. That now means that standing alone in the free pass position, the only car 1 lap down, would be the 76 of James Duke in the 22nd position. So if there is any driver right now that is lobbying for a caution to come out, it would have to be the driver of the 76. Now, obviously, he doesn't want to be involved in the wreck, but it certainly, with 20 laps to go, would give him enough time to get up there and maybe salvage a top 10 run. Who even knows? Maybe an opportunity at winning this season opener.
And there goes Arthur getting out of the way of the field. That got close right there. The high side reacted to it, and great reactions, able to jump into the middle lane. They weren't quite sure where the 19 was going there. We've already seen a couple of incidents with lead lap drivers and lap cars. We've seen it a couple of times already tonight.
Hutchinson is now slotted into the 2nd spot behind Boyd Hogan. who disposed of the 31 of Nathan Jurgensen, dropping him back to the third position. So now Boyd Hogan back out in a familiar position, leading the field around Daytona. Now less than 20 to go as 19 laps left goes up on the board, and we're going to start to see the moves made from here to about 10 laps to go now, positioning yourself for where you want to be in the final sprint to the finish. Watch that 24 on the top side. We've talked about how Brandon Andrews has been one of the best pushers in the business. Can he get Agnell Phillip up alongside Boyd Hogan down the back straightaway? He will.
Yeah, Phillip and Andrews working really well together up there right now, and they have Polimas right in behind them, and Newsom. Those are four very fast race trucks hooked up on the high side, but Hogan is still holding really tough on the inside. Hutchison is giving him a phenomenal push around this racetrack in the number 51, looking like Rowdy Burns out there.
24 of Andrews. It's hard to tell what's going on there with his Silverado. You keep seeing him step up about a half groove higher through the corners. I don't know if he's trying to get some air to the nose of his machine after pushing the 94 on the top side. If maybe the air moving around is unsettling his truck. I'm not certain what it is, but the 24 doesn't look all that steady. A lot of movement even there down the back straightaway.
Yeah, a lot of movement on that back straightaway. I think he's trying to see if Polimas maybe follows him. We saw right at the beginning of these drivers working up on the high side, we saw Andrews and Polimas working very well together, just those two. Maybe he's trying to find a way to get past Phillip and bring Polimas with him.
Yeah, might feel that that outside line could move further forward if the 94 wasn't the lead truck on that outside line. We'll see if indeed he jumps up there to the third lane, if the 79 goes with him. You've also got Newsom in the 23, the 16 of Matthew Van Gelder also up on that outside line. And I believe behind him you've got the lap machine, the 53 of Chris Noble, trying to keep himself at least up inside of the top 25 in tonight's finishing results, as he's currently scored 2 laps down to the race leader. Another slower truck up ahead for the race leaders to deal with momentarily as we're closing in on 15 laps to go. And it's almost like they threw the green flag to start this race, because we're right back where we started. Double wide from the front row all the way back through the remainder of this lead pack.
And with all those cautions that we got, Seth, and everybody really topping off on fuel throughout the time, some of these drivers, if not all of these drivers, can possibly make it to the finish here. We might not see another pit stop here at the end of this race. And these drivers are definitely racing like they don't have to pit again, because these drivers are working really hard. Polimas on the high side with Andrews now. He's gotten what he's wanted, and Andrews now leads the high side with Phillip dropping to the inside in front of Hogan.
Yeah, they finally got Agnell Phillip ahead of Boyd Hogan. 94 dropped down to the inside line, so now Brandon Andrews with the outside advantage is going to go out in front. Polimas trying to push him there, and wondered for a moment there, I thought the 24 might be diving down to the inside line, but instead driving down to avoid the slower truck, which I believe was the 25 of Corey Hassler. Jumps back up, now jumps back down again. Not sure which lane he wants to take, not sure where the momentum is at. And now it's going to be Paul Hemus leading that outside line. And as we saw earlier on in this race, that is a truck that can lead a lane. When he is out in clean air as the lead truck, that lane, whichever lane he's in, is going to go to the front of the field.
Oh, that is for sure. But I have noticed Polimas does have very, very slight bumper damage. You have to be wondering if that might affect him just a little bit. It's the littlest bit of bumper damage is slightly caved in. And I'm just curious if that might be affecting him just a little bit, because he still has speed for sure, but it just doesn't seem like he has that little oomph like he had earlier in that number 79 machine. As he leads the high side, he has not been able to challenge Andrews quite enough. And here he comes on the back straightaways and door to door here with him for the first time. Newsom giving him a great push down the back straightaway. That 23 is showing off a lot of speed. I mentioned it earlier, Seth. The number 23 of Newsom definitely has some speed in that Silverado.
Andrews now about maybe a truck length and a half back to Paul Hemus, leading that outside line. As a matter of fact, the top two trucks are clear. Almost looked like for a moment that Agno Phillip thought about jumping up to that outside line to get around Andrews for the race lead, but instead going to stay in line for the moment between Andrews in the 24 and Boyd Hogan in the 96. We're closing in on 10 laps to go here in the Guy Seeley Building Materials Daytona 250, the season opener for the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series for the 2022 season. And again, want to remind you folks that at reaperspeedlab.com, you can use the code MSRA to receive a $15 discount off the RTP package. The offer available until the 23rd of February. Almost 10 laps remaining. We're continuing to see. It's amazing how you can visibly see the aggressiveness, the anticipation, the excitement in the field visually with the movement of the trucks. And you can just see the wheels turning inside the helmets of these drivers of planning not only their next move for the next corner, but maybe the next couple of laps.
And that's what I thought I saw out of Brandon Andrews just a lap or two ago when he was jumping from the high side to the inside to the high side to the inside. He wants to hang on to that lead. He knows he has one of the fastest, if not the fastest truck in the field, so he can hold the lead a lot better than a lot of these other drivers. And he's beginning to get a challenge on there's a wreck!
Oh!
Huge accident! Tracy!
Braxton Ruiz was in it.
Huge wreck. Huge
Chuck
hit for
Waldrop,
Tracy.
Patrick Stein. And the defending champion Alan Dobbs was collected as well. Or of Richard Clement, I believe, got a piece. And this caution comes out, closing in on 10 laps to go in the season opener at Daytona. This one taking place in one of the toughest areas to avoid an incident, the narrow tri-oval.
And when an accident happens in the tri-oval, it's going to take out a lot of cars, and you saw it right there. It took out a lot of trucks. Coming into the tri-oval, the Grim Reaper came down and strutted his stuff here near the end of this race, a little over 10 laps to go.
Like maybe a little bumper grab taking place there between the 14 of Tracy and the 27 of John Theodore. That was a battle around the 11th, 12th position, just outside of the top 10.
Definitely a very nasty accident here, approaching the end of the race, and we were talking about it. These drivers' aggression levels and the excitement level has definitely risen just in the last few laps, and you saw it right there. Hit an impact right there. A lot of drivers with heavy damage, and some of these drivers are probably done for the day. The 8 car of Braxton just took a heavy hit to the outside wall and then got hit very hard from the number 22, our prior champion, Alan Dobbs. Just a very big hit from the 8 machine, the 14, the 22. A lot of very good race trucks destroyed after this accident.
This caution very reminiscent of the second yellow flag of the night, just in the fact, as we see there on board with the defending champion Alan Dobbs, little to no reaction time to be able to avoid it. Just happened so fast.
Yeah, you saw it on the onboard right there. Alan Dobbs is just trying to drive through the wreck. He thought he might have been clear of it, and then here comes the 8 machine just flying right into his nose. And like you said, Seth, there's just nothing he could have really done there. It's just he did the best he could in that sort of situation, and unfortunately, he got taken out in it.
On the first half of the super speedway races, it turns into usually a race of strategy. Second half, especially drawing closer to the end of the race, it turns into a race of attrition, and you see upwards of about 10 trucks, maybe more, getting bits and pieces, and for some of them even more so than that, of this incident, bringing out the 4th caution of the day. To your point, possibly an early end for a number of them. Such a heartbreak when you get this far into a race like this and you end up on the tow hook, but that's the beauty and the curse of super speedway racing. You kind of sign a waiver there that where Daytona is not held responsible for what happens to your truck By the time the green flag waves and these drivers willing to take that risk when they climb behind the wheels of these trucks here at Daytona International Speedway, they run that risk that they might not be making it to the checkered flag in one piece.
And with just few laps left to go, I have to look at a driver like Corey Hassler or Daniel Simmons. They're going to make up some spots here, Seth, with a couple of these drivers exiting the race. Hassler 4 laps down, Simmons 5 laps down. They have a couple of laps left, and a couple of drivers just exited the race. They're going to be able to get a couple more spots here, get some more points before this race is over here, Seth.
Those drivers in the garage area, Braxton DeWeese and Robert Anderson, they will not reach the conclusion. We've also got a number of drivers still on pit road getting repairs done, including Alan Dobbs, Patrick Stein, and James Duke. If I'm not mistaken, James Duke, who was involved in the incident, was scheduled to be the recipient of the lucky dog, so I'm not certain if we're going to have a free pass machine under this yellow flag. We could have, I believe, only 16 trucks on the lead lap when we get ready to go back green flag racing with Brandon Andrews, the race leader. One final time, want to thank the people at Guy C. Lee Building Materials for sponsoring tonight's season opener of the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. Guy C. Lee Building Materials has been supporting the building industry in North Carolina for nearly a century. They not only distribute high-quality brand-name building supplies, but also operate a mill that produces and distributes interior and exterior doors and glass, as well as custom glass work. The owners love racing and have come on board to support the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. For more information, please visit www.guyclee.com. Well, here we go, Kyle. 8 laps to go here at Daytona. The big question is, do they make it back to the white flag before we see another yellow? There's only a handful of trucks left in this race to finish it out.
You were talking about Guy C. Lee Building Materials, Seth, and I think we're going to need to call them because these drivers are about to break the glass right now.
I think there are a couple of sledgehammers for sure used down on pit road, maybe a couple of saws as well. But these guys up here at the front haven't needed to use any building materials right yet. Brandon Andrews, Ralph Hutchinson, Agno Phillip, Barrett Balhemus, as well as Boyd Hogan. Oh, and a big wreck right at the front of the field. Hutchinson gets turned.
I was looking at that when it happened. It looked like Palimas maybe had given the number 51 a bad bump and a huge wreck. Wow, it took out a good amount of our leaders. Insanity.
Hutchinson, the 51 through the grass. There you see the 94 of Agno Phillip getting his truck refired on the apron. Also the 31 of Nathan Jurgensen got involved, and another big wreck, this time at the front of the field, puts us under the caution for the 5th time tonight. And that means we're going to have ourselves a good old-fashioned shootout to finish out tonight's season opener, but we got to go back to the back straightaway because this was a side-by-side battle for the race lead.
Yeah, some heavy battling drivers trying to set themselves up for the finish, and the 51 was trying to take the lead, and it looks like Palimas, I don't know if he got a bump as well, but Palimas just looked like he maybe have gotten a little bit into the 51 and just trying to bump draft him, and maybe just wasn't quite squared with this bumper and just caused this accident right here, and just a huge accident. A lot of really good cars taken out in this, and look at Andrews. Andrews got on 2 wheels and continued to go. I'm curious on how badly his damage might be on the number 24 machine after that.
Yeah, a lot of fishtailing there for Brandon Andrews. A nice avoidance by Boyd Hogan in the 96. I believe the 48 of Jamie Knopf got a piece of this incident as well, as we're going to take another view of this on the back straightaway. We know for certain that the 31 of Jurgensen was involved. It looks like it's been enough damage sustained to take him out of this race. And, oh man, just trying to line up those bumpers. Maybe just a slight errant bump there from the 79 to the 51 leads to this one, and we're going to be taking an onboard with the 96 because I think that Boyd Hogan might have just saved his bacon, kept himself in the running of this race with the avoidance he had there on the backstretch.
Yeah, you were just mentioning it right there, Seth, and yeah, Boyd Hogan was about to burn his Pop-Tarts right there, Seth.
Take a look here off of turn number 2. We're riding with the 96, the pole sitter Boyd Hogan. It's not easy to go coast to coast at a super speedway, and almost the odds went out the window for Boyd Hogan. Watch here, there's the contact. Here's the wreck. He had to use a little bit of that dog leg for the Daytona road course configuration to be able to avoid, but got down into the grass, kept the thing pointed in the right direction, and keeps his hopes of winning tonight's season opener alive, at least for the time being. But with that yellow flag coming out, and 79, who had the contact between himself and the 51 leading to that incident, Barrett Paul Hemus, he's going to be the one that leads us back to the green flag.
And we have Polimas and Newsom leading the field with Hogan as well. These three are some of the fastest trucks in the field here tonight. And a lot of our other really fast trucks and just a good amount of the field have been taken out in a couple of big accidents that we've had here. It's easier to tell you what trucks have not been damaged here tonight.
How about the battle here tonight for one Chris Noble? Lost a lap when we had the long green flag run in the early stages of this race. He then took the wave around during the second stage. It didn't work out for him. He had to make a trip to pit lane under green flag conditions, fell a second lap down. He got the free pass a couple of cautions ago, and now gets the free pass under this yellow flag. The 53, who about 30 laps ago was 2 laps down to the leaders, is now back on the lead lap. He's going to restart in the 13th position. This is why you stay in it when it's these type of super speedway races. It may look bleak at the beginning, but boy, the rewards could be astronomical by the end of the night.
And it looked like we were going to go green this time by, but the lights are back out on the pace car. So I think we're going to get the green flag with 3 laps to go. So we're not going to have technically a green-white checkered here. Green-white checkered here. It'll just be a 3-lap shootout possibly to end the race. Will we see another accident? There's very few cars out there at this point that are able to keep pace. What do you think is going to happen here, Seth?
It's going to be interesting for sure. I'm not certain if we've got enough trucks to be able to bring out a yellow flag, but then I kind of thought that back during the last restart, and they ended up having contact at the front of the field that led to the yellow. It's going to be really interesting to see if they get back to that white flag. We got 13 drivers that are going to be on the lead lap when we eventually go back green. Barrett Paul Hemus, the leader. Greg Newsom in second. Boyd Hogan, David Santini in third and fourth. TJ Crampton now up to fifth. He's had a kind of uneventful night, and that's not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to super speedway racing. He completes top 5 with Richard Clement and Kevin Roy in 6th and 7th. John Theodore runs in 8th. You mentioned about that contact with Brandon Andrews getting up on 2 wheels. He did come down pit lane under this yellow. A little bit of TLC to the 24, but he's going to line up in the 9th position. Jamie Knopf completes the top 10. Then Troy Hutchinson, Robert Tracy, and Chris Noble. At this point in time, those are the 13 trucks that still have a shot of winning this race. We do have another 4 or 5 trucks out there that are a lap down or more. They're just trying to finish out the race, and some of them looking for top 15, some of them looking for top 20s in the case of drivers like Rick Webb, just trying to finish the race with the car under power.
At a track like Daytona, even if you have a lot of damage, as long as you're on the lead lap, on that last lap, you still have a good shot to win this race, especially with the madness we've seen the last 30 laps. A lot of massive accidents, especially up there battling it out for the lead. The leaders might get into it on that last lap, and who knows who could win this race at that point. We've seen some crazy things on iRacing and in NASCAR at Daytona.
There is no overtime here. We are running to the conclusion of lap 100. We may finish it under green if they can get to the white. We may finish it under caution, so it's all the question of which flag are these drivers racing to. Who's going to get that first checkered flag of the 2022 season in the Reaper Speedlabs Truck Series? Paul Hemus has spent a good portion of time out in front. Boyd Hogan, David Santini have done the same. Greg Newsom had to battle from being a lap down. He's up inside of the top 5. TJ Crampton and Richard Clement, this is the closest they've been to the top 5 all night long. Green flag with 3 laps to go. Back in the air here at Daytona.
right when that green flag came out, Hogan gave Polimas a little bit of a bump. These two are really going to get going. These two have been so fast all night long. It's kind of fitting that these two are up here at the front of the field at the end of this thing. Newsom drops back into the fourth position. And you mentioned TJ Crampton. We haven't mentioned him all night. And that's the way to do it. You don't want to get even mentioned by a commentator's name until the last 5 laps. And that's what Crampton's doing. He's here in the 3rd spot, competing for the win here late.
David Santini in the 12 wants to go. He got a big toe being the 5th car in line there off of turn 2. Jumped to the outside line, but Kevin Roy didn't bite, didn't jump up there with him. Santini going to go up there again. Will anybody from 6th on back go up there with him? If they're going to generate an outside line, they're going to have to generate it around where Santini is, giving the opportunity for drivers like Hogan or Crampton to jump up there as well and battle for this race lead. Less than 2 to go here at Daytona, less than 5 miles in the season opener.
You just mentioned it, Seth. Those are the 2 drivers I'm really going to be looking out for to jump up to the high side, and that is Crampton and Hogan. Newsom is now trying to get the high side started, and no one's really jumping up there. You have Andrews now that's falling in right behind him. Can they get this high lane started? It looks like Jamie Nope is up there as well in the number 48 machine. They're trying to get this high side started. Does Hogan jump up here? This is a perfect opportunity for him to jump up.
No, the 24 is a good pusher. Can he get Newsom up there to the race lead? He's alongside Hogan. He's alongside of Paul Hemus for the top spot. They make it to the white flag. We now race to the checkers. Whatever happens, happens. The question is, who brings home the trophy? Who brings home the steering wheel at Daytona?
The last lap here in the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250. Who will get the job done? They're coming off turns 1 and 2. Polimas is on the high side. Hogan now leads the bottom. These guys are really beginning to stack up on the back straightaway.
Everybody muscling for room to race. Now Crampton gets put in the middle 3 wide. Santini forces his way in there. Paul Hemus into the back of the 61. This is all going on behind Boyd Hogan, but here comes Crampton with a big run on the high side. Big push from Paul Hemus. They'll be dead even. 3 wide off of turn 4. Crampton edges ahead.
Here comes Polimas on the inside. It's going to be a close race to the line. And it is Polimas, it looked like. It is Crampton. What a close finish. 5,000ths of a second. TJ Crampton wins the season opener. Wow, what a finish.
As they wreck across the start-finish line, Boyd Hogan, Richard Clement, and a couple of others. To your point, 5/1000ths of a second is the difference maker between TJ Crampton, race winner, and Barrett Paul Hemus, runner-up in tonight's season opener. What a battle from turn 4 all the way back to the start-finish line. I don't think a single driver inside the top 10 was running the same line off of turn 4 that they were in when they got to the checkered flag.
I'm going to be honest with you right now, Seth. I am super, super jealous of TJ Crampton because that's the strategy I try to pull every time. I usually don't end up in victory lane like Crampton does, and that was just the most impressive and stylish way to do it in that number 61 machine, and he gets the job done in the season opener, and he looks pumped, burning it down in the grass. A well-deserved victory for TJ Crampton, who kept quiet most of the day and then popped up at the end of the race and was able to steal the victory here and notch his first win of the season. A very long season here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series, and your first winner is TJ Crampton.
And I think I'm pretty safe in making this assumption. I believe he led only 1 lap tonight, the all-important final lap back to the checkered flag. He did it from the 26th starting position. Pretty much remained quiet all evening long and made his move when it mattered the most, avoided the attrition in the middle and latter portions of this race, and you could just see the elation there. A long burnout going to celebrate in front of the Daytona fans here tonight there on the front straightaway as we take a look at the finishing results from tonight's exciting season opener in the Guy C. Lee Building Materials Daytona 250. Wow, we know Daytona never disappoints, but even so, I still find myself always surprised when we have finishes like this.
Yeah, I've seen these Daytona finishes every time, and you'd think eventually it'd get old, and it just It just doesn't. That was another insane finish. And I saw it coming to the line. I was like, Polimas got this. Polimas got this. And then Crampton was just barely able to get the nose ahead of him across the line. Santini wasn't too far behind them either. A very insane and crazy finish. And I would really like to commend Brandon Andrews on getting that top 5. By the way, a couple of laps ago, he was on 2 tires. He was a couple inches away from literally flipping his car over on the back straightaway and ends up coming home 4th. Very impressive performance.
Got 3 drivers here inside of the top 10 that spent their time 1 or more laps down in this race. John Theodore finishing in 5th, Newsom in 7th, and Kevin Roy in the 9th position. Great comeback runs for those drivers here this evening as we then start to make our way further down the running order, and there's a couple of drivers notables that were up there inside of the top 10 for most of the evening that aren't going to get the finish that they may have deserved. The 51 of Ralph Hutchinson spent a good portion of time up inside the top 10. We had Agno Phillip and Nathan Jurgensen up there inside of the top 5 in the second half of this race. They found hardship in the latter portions. And of course, we go a little bit further down and you look at drivers like the 19 of Vincent Arthur. He qualified up inside of the top 10 for this race. Not the finish that some of these drivers are looking for here this evening. They'll have to rebound when we get to Auto Club next week.
It's a good place to rebound. Auto Club Speedway tends to be a cleaner race than most, and a lot of strategy takes into effect. A lot of drivers racing the racetrack more than each other. Like here at Daytona, they're all just racing each other. Go to a track like Auto Club, you can all really just separate and take it easy, and it'll definitely be a cool break after Daytona.
Absolutely. Well, let's see if we can talk with some of our podium finishers here tonight, and let's see if we can kick things off with a driver that started this race also deep in the field, 22nd place, and finishes on the podium in the 3rd position. Let's talk with a guy who also led a good portion of this race in the middle section around the green flag pit stops. That's David Santini. Hey David, it's Kyle and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you guys.
All right, well, man, I'll tell you what, a wild season opener for us to be able to call up here in the booth. I can only imagine what the heart rate was for you down there in that final sprint to the finish. But Daytona not disappointing here tonight for sure. An exciting race, but what was it like down in the cockpit of that 12 machine?
Oh, it was pretty fun. I always come into these races expecting to get wrecked, so I was pretty excited there at the end, when we had a chance to compete for the win. And then at the end there, Boyd, washed up a little bit, got under him, and then I really thought I had a chance, and then TJ made a great move up top there, carried the momentum, and got the win. But it was a lot of fun. It was great to be able to compete for a win there at the end.
And we know that obviously at super speedways, nothing necessarily always goes to plan. You usually have to change up your strategy depending on if it's pit strategy, an untimely caution, or of course, as we know, super speedway is famed for the big one, completely a game changer. We saw in the midway portion of this race, in the first stage, you working with the 17 of John Gifford. Looked like the two of you pretty committed to running nose to tail. But then we saw him have some hardships with a pit road entry incident. Did that force you to have to change up your strategy and maybe have to find a new dancing partner as far as making your way back up to the front?
Yeah, we just planned on running out the fuel till we had to pit, and I believe at the time we had about 5 laps to go or so, and he just barely clipped the apron, and it just so happened to be there in turn 4, and I slowed down a little bit, so I was, figured I might as well pit here while I'm slowed down, and then it ended up that I came out, I think 23rd, and there was a pack there. So, it was just kind of more or less just ride this out, see where it goes, kind of do what everybody else is doing, and make some moves and get up front, and it all seemed to work out for the better.
Obviously, a lot of drivers, when they get good finishes at Daytona, not only does it give them confidence, but it also gets them momentum heading into the next week's race. Next week, we head to the high banks, the wide Auto Club speedways. So, with the podium finish here tonight, what's the outlook now when we head to the West Coast?
Oh yeah, it always helps to finish well, and you can go into the next week hoping to do just as well, if not better. But I do have another race tomorrow night, National Daytona, so hopefully we can also carry it over into that as well. See if we can get the win tomorrow night, maybe.
All right, well, David, congratulations on a great performance here tonight. You bring it home third place, and now we're going to give you the opportunity to be able to do some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Oh no, for sure. Again, you guys always putting on these great broadcasts for us at Flatout, and then Reaper Speed Labs coming on board with the league to help out, and everybody over at OSN Racing as well.
That's David Santini, third place finisher here tonight at Daytona in the season opener for the 2022 season of the Reaper Speed Lab Truck Series. Congratulations once again, David, and best of luck when we get to Auto Club next week.
Yep, thanks guys, appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, Kyle, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you interview tonight's second place finisher, Barrett Polhemus.
Just me and you.
Barrett, Kyle, and Seth up in the booth. You got me?
Loud and clear, boys.
Barrett, you had a phenomenal night. Most of your night was spent up at front. I would like to first of all congratulate you on your second place finish, but how did it feel to just be up front all night? It just seemed like you had one of the fastest trucks out there.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle, and the boys back at Elite Performance Industries. I got this thing hooked up, and this thing is really, really fast in the draft. I mean, I was hitting almost 190 in a truck, so I think that's really, really good. I was able to run up front most of the race. There was one setback before the stage break where people were pitting early to try and make it to the end and get stage points. I was confused on that because I didn't know that we had a stage break, so I had to pit by myself and was kind of left out as far as that goes. I just hooked up with a pack and raced some back there. Got some good experience up on the high line back there, and I think that's what helped me, especially towards the end up front. I was able to push really, really well. It just doesn't seem like I was able to get that one good push on the outside lane that would push me up into the lead until I got into I think it was, I can't remember his first name. I'm still processing all that, but I know his last name was Hutchison, who's the 51. I didn't mean to wreck him, obviously, but I was pushing him just like I've been pushing everyone else all night and just sent him right around, and that's what ended up giving us the lead. Boyd gave me a great push there on the last restart, and the plan, I just wanted to stick with him, but then he and Newsom got together, and I thought, he's going to drop back. He's not going to be close enough, and the outside line is going to get us, and we're going to lose this race. And so I went up a little bit to try and block the run on the high line, or at least get a push from them. But that ended up not working because Boyd came back at me immediately after that, and so I got a little bit of a push from the 24, and that helped me stay up there. And then we almost wrecked with TJ there. That was pretty scary, but it was a great save by him. And then from there, I was able to use the speed of the set in the draft to just push him all the way up there in one corner. And then when Boyd started trying to pinch us up into the wall, trying to side draft us to keep his chances up, I knew we were going to be able to get him. And I saw the slightest opportunity down low to clear him, and then I went down low and it was just barely got me at the line. So it was a great race overall. I had lots of fun tonight, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, you mentioned it that you were just so good at pushing, and I noticed that you and Brandon Andrews were just so good at giving those big pushes, but there at the end and in the middle portion of the race, you just weren't able to quite get good enough pushes yourself. But let's go back to that finish real quick. What was maybe going through your mind coming to the line? Did you think you were going to get him at the line there? That was awfully close. A phenomenal finish.
Yeah, I thought I did get him for a second because we crossed the line, and then it showed me that I had moved ahead of him, but then the standings updated and I had a 2 next to my name instead of a 1. So it was a little bit disappointing, but I mean, it's not crushing, because we ran up front all race. It was a good race, and it was a good finish, and it was a good clean finish. I mean, and there weren't any dirty moves. There wasn't any punting out of the way or blatantly wrecking someone. So I think it was a good finish, and even though we did finish second place, I mean, it's a well-earned, hard-fought second place, and it was clean but fair, and that's just the way I like it. So, yeah, all in all, it was a great race with a great finish to cap it off. Like I said, I can't thank the boys back at Elite Performance Industries enough for hooking this truck up real nice. It's a rocket ship.
Well, great performance out there, Barrett. You mentioned it, a phenomenal second place finish. Anybody else you might have to thank for your performance out there? Any other sponsors or anything for tonight?
My only other sponsor really is Redemption Motorsports. That's the team that I run for and own partially. So it's good to have their support no matter what. And yeah, it's gonna be a great season with those guys behind me. If once we're working together, I mean, magic happens. So I think we're gonna win quite a few races this year. We'll be contending for the championship, barring any unfortunate circumstances. So yeah, it's a great league so far. I mean, we ran really clean all night. I think this is the best league I've run in thus far. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great year.
Well, thanks for talking with us, Barrett. Once again, congratulations on your second place finish, and have a great night, man. And hope to see you next week after Auto Club.
Thank y'all. See y'all later.
Of course. Now I think I'm gonna send it down to you, Seth. I think you're with our race winner.
Yeah, he's done celebrating in the infield. We've got him mic'd up. Let's talk with TJ Crampton down in Victory Lane. Hey, TJ, it's Seth and Kyle up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I have you.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. Daytona is known for photo finishes. Sometimes you're on the winning end, sometimes you're on the losing end. Tonight, buddy, you're on the winning end. 5/1000ths of a second nabs you the first win of the 2022 season here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. I mean, first off, when you cross the start finish line and you see that you were the winner of this race, what's the first emotions? What's the first thoughts that go through a racer's mind?
I didn't know who won, to be honest. I thought I celebrated too early off of turn 4 because they were 3 wide, and all of a sudden Barrett made a move, and I was like, oh moly. And I thought I lost at the end. I thought I celebrated too soon, but once they updated, the standings updated, I couldn't believe it. I'm still shaking after that last lap. It was so intense. I was death gripping the steering wheel, just waiting for something to happen. It's really intense, these super speedway races.
Obviously, we were talking about the fact that we hadn't really mentioned your name at all tonight until maybe the final 20 laps of this race, and that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. You had a very quiet race, kept yourself out of trouble, but I'm certain that down in the seat of that 61, it was anything but a quiet race. I mean, talk about how you formulate a strategy, not only with the pit strategy early on in this race, but also to make sure that you positioned yourself to avoid those wrecks late.
Yeah, me and my teammate Matthew just try to form a game plan, stay at the back for most of the race, don't get caught up in any shenanigans. And I had a good pit stop, which got me up into the front pack that first stage, and it really just set me up for a good race. There's a few times where a wreck happened right in front of me, and I just had to swerve and go in the grass, and I got clipped barely once, didn't have much damage, so I was thankful for that. But it's really hard to strategize for this place because you make a strategy and then something happens, and then you just got to make up a backup plan and then another backup plan, and pretty soon it goes all the way to Z.
Obviously, we're very early on into the schedule, but have to ask this question. You're the first driver to get a checkered flag this season. What does this mean for the mindset now as you prepare for Auto Club next week and future races heading towards the playoffs?
Um, Really, my mindset is just to go out there and get a top 15, top 10 finish, really every race, just based off of how talented and good this field is. This is definitely one of the most packed and most talented and competitive series I've ever been in. So really, for me, just to get a top 15, top 10 every week would be good. But with this, I can make strategy calls, or I can make some bolder decisions. 2 tires, maybe no tires on a late restart, and hopefully not mess up anyone else's day, but also get me a good day in some other races.
Well, TJ, you don't necessarily have to lead all the laps. You just have to lead that last lap. You were able to do that here tonight to capture the Daytona checkered flag. Congratulations on that. And now we're going to hand the mic over to you, and we're going to allow you to do some victory lane thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys, obviously, for broadcasting. I got to thank my friends for watching the broadcast. And I got to thank Matthew, my team owner at JEM Racing. He does so much work on the setups week in and week out. And He's a badass, and sorry for my language. But that's about it. Don't have much sponsors on this thing. Just got to thank my friends and family and my team owner.
Well, the first race of the season, the Guy Seeley Building Materials Daytona 250 belongs to the driver of the number 61, TJ Crampton, as he is in victory lane here tonight at Daytona. Congratulations once again, TJ. Go and enjoy this victory. Continue to celebrate, and maybe we'll talk to you next week at Auto Club.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kyle. Again, like we alluded to before we talked with these podium finishers, an exciting race at Daytona, just like we expect every time we come to this historic racetrack. But boy, you heard TJ say he was still shaken after he found out he won and was getting it, being able to do those burnouts in the front straightaway. Certainly tonight, setting a terrific tone for these drivers and what's looking like it's going to be an incredible season.
It looks like it's going to be an incredible season, Seth. A phenomenal way to start off the season here tonight at Daytona. It was a phenomenal race, and TJ Crampton hung out in the back most of the day and was able to come up to the front near the end. And when it counted, led that last lap, and that's all he needed, and won the race by only 5,000ths of a second tonight. A lot of good cars taken out tonight, but I expect to see a lot of those drivers back up near the front next week when we race the Auto Club for 88 laps there. That should be a lot of fun when we head out west.
Yeah, Daytona, now the measuring stick. Drivers that ran well tonight will look to continue their momentum as we go East Coast to West Coast. Drivers that may have had a disappointing run here tonight will look to rebound when we get to Auto Club Speedway next week. We want to thank you all for joining us here tonight for the season opener of the 2022 season for the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. Again, a big thank you to Reaper Speedlab for sponsoring the series. A big thank you to Guy Seeley Building Materials for sponsoring tonight's Daytona race. And Kyle, appreciate you joining me in the booth here tonight for what was a thriller of a season opener.
I appreciate you having me in the booth, Seth. And yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal season to look forward to here in the Reaper Speedlab Truck Series. A great schedule they have set up here to pretty much follow the Road to Pro schedule with a couple other dates added in. It's a very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season.
Once again, we thank you all for joining us here tonight. Join us next week, next Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we'll bring you coverage of the second race of the season at Auto Club Speedway. But for Kyle Lawrence, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.